Welcome to the Playful Life podcast. I'm your host, Krystal. Growing up, I struggled with my weight, self-confidence, and body image, and like many in my teens, I developed an eating disorder. I battled codependent behavior, and it all affected my mental health. As the years went by, I learned and grew in healing, and I found serenity, really in empowering others to let go of their pasts and to embrace their own leadership in their health and well-being. Now it is my mission as a coach, author, speaker, and podcast host to inspire and empower you to live your best, most playful life. On this podcast, you will hear from our guests about their personal struggles and breakthroughs in their health, careers, and relationships. You'll also receive tips, knowledge, and inspiration to tackle your own health goals and start living the dreams on your heart. Ready? Let's play. Joining me today on the podcast is a great friend of mine and a colleague in the fitness and wellness world, Elaine Bintz. And for those of you who have been following the podcast for a while, the first time I had Elaine on was about a year ago. It was May of 2020, roughly, and we were pretty much still figuring out how we were going to weather the storm of the pandemic in our businesses and our personal lives, and how we were going to pivot and make sense of what we were doing when we couldn't really see clients face to face. And I'm so proud of Elaine. She has pivoted so well and been able to join the virtual space. And she actually is helping way more people now because she's gotten online and into a whole different way of serving her clientele. And what's so interesting about the two of us is, we're in roughly the same market. And we definitely do a lot of the same things in our businesses, but we attract just completely different people to us, and we help people in totally different ways. And we often laugh when we get together on, walks or for coffee and really talk about the things that she loves to do in her training business and the things that I really love to do. And they're so different, and we get along so well. And I'm very, very happy to bring you this episode. I think that you're going to find a lot of good inspiration here and hear from a woman who is strong and just making things happen for herself and for her family. Enjoy. Hello, Elaine.
Hi, Krystal. How are ya?
I'm doing excellent. How are you?
Doing great. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining me back here on the Playful Life. So our audience that might have been watching close to a year ago now might have seen the episode that we did together. And it was a little bit different back then because we were recording, I think, live on Facebook and YouTube. And it was very early in the morning. So it's very nice that we had time to do this a little differently today. So we're not so stressed about that. But and I do recall, Elaine, I was sort of went and rewatched that episode, and we talked a lot about, it was May, I believe, towards the end of May of 2020. And at that point we were talking a lot about like, how are we adjusting to like this new world, and the pandemic was sort of still kind of fresh, right? I mean, comparatively. So, we were both sort of in this transitional period in our businesses as health coaches and trainers. So I'm excited because, we've seen each other several times, sort of throughout the year, but just regrouping and letting our audience know what you've been up to and how you've weathered all of this, and maybe some of the positive ways that this has influenced you in your business model. So
awesome.
All right. So tell me a little bit, looking back on this year, if you will, like what were some of the highs and some of the lows for you, as far as being a coach?
2020, Krystal, we made it. We survived. We had a lot of changes. Last year, I was not very comfortable with technology. I am much more proficient with technology. I bought these handy dandy AirPods, and I've just gotten more comfortable with beginning working with clients remotely, and just so many changes since the quarantine. So the majority of my business pre-COVID, I guess we can say, was in person, and then now about 80% of my business is remote. And at first, I wasn't very comfortable with it, but now I love it because we've really been able to like break down the walls, so to speak. You know, like because now people can take me outside on a walk if they're living in Nashville and their weather is different than mine, or if they're in Alaska and they're in a different time zone. I mean, I've had so many unique experiences that I would never have had if I did not expand my remote services.
Wow, that's really cool. So how did you get hooked up with someone in Alaska to train
Um,
and work
she
with?
was actually I actually had worked with her when she lived more locally, and it's just the explosion of information. So I know the internet has been around. Like I am aware, I mean, obviously I went to college and the whole email and all that. But the truth is I wasn't very comfortable with like I created a website, right? It's my name, elainebintz.com, right? So just doing a simple thing like that, just putting it out there, it just kind of made like all these crawlers and all these connections all over the place. And it just connected people I knew and the people I knew with the people they know. And it's just, well, this worked for so and so. But the truth is, I mean, even like in your business, they don't have to physically be here to work out, to change their diet, to make healthy decisions. You don't have to physically be in person for any of that. And I think the big takeaway, the big highlight from COVID that I got was that you don't have to be in the same physical location in order to work together.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. I love that part of it, and I think we were just speaking kind of before we hit record on this that part of my business still is sort of meeting people where they are and going to people's
Yeah.
homes. And that really exploded for me during COVID because people
Okay.
were comfortable maybe with me coming over and wearing a mask and us sort of
Yeah.
socially distancing inside their home, but they weren't super comfortable with going to the gym or or
Right.
that. So
Right.
I've seen a really big boom for me in that way, but now it's
Right.
it's just it's starting to get difficult for me, I think time
Yeah.
wise to sort of drive
Yeah.
around and meet with people and
Right. Right.
sort of factoring in all of that time. And
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
even though I've turned my car into somewhat of a university, being able to
Yeah.
listen to a lot of audiobooks and
Yeah.
podcasts and
Yeah. That's
stuff like that,
awesome.
which
That's
I
awesome.
enjoy,
Yeah.
but that doesn't really take away from the energy part of it, right? The energy
Yeah.
part
Yeah.
put into it.
Well,
So
yeah, like you said, like the resources have changed. I mean, I've known several people their gym has closed, whether they're local or they live on the other side of the country. A lot of the boutique studios that were a specific type, whether it was like, bar or CrossFit, or functional training, a lot of those really small facilities, they did not weather the storm of COVID,
mm,
and they closed. So depending on where you live locally, I know we talked about the YMCA a lot last time we interviewed last year. I mean, those types of places, I'm really hoping that people are feeling comfortable enough to go back. But a lot of the small specialty fitness centers, unfortunately, they're not still around.
right. Yeah. Which is strange because I feel like the more boutique style, right, where there's maybe only two or three people in a studio at a time are probably really the places that people would feel comfortable maybe
Right,
being in.
right,
But just from a financial
right,
standpoint, when you
right,
can't have 20, 30 people in the building at once,
right,
you just logistically
right.
can't make it work. So yeah, I
Yeah,
know it's
yeah.
really been interesting. And I commend you and
And you
people
too.
in our well, thank you, for really being like, thinking outside the box and really
Yeah,
meeting people where they
yeah,
are. And I know that again, that's something that we've talked about with your just style of training and coaching is that you
yeah,
meet people,
yeah.
where they are in sort of like a not a physical space sense, but like a head space,
Oh
right? An emotional
yeah. Oh
space
my
and sort of
gosh.
what they need.
Yeah,
So I'd love to,
yeah,
before I forget that we were going to talk about this,
yeah.
and excuse me if I don't pronounce it right, but Ayurveda?
Okay. Okay, so
Ayurveda?
one of the things, so granted, you know how like there's like Captain Obvious and everybody knows this, right? But okay, so like you go get your hair done, right? Or your nails, or I don't know, you go to like some service professional, and that person, they know every story about your spouse, they know stories about your kid. I mean, basically, like, let's call it for what it is. Krystal, you and I, we're low paid therapists, right? Okay. So I mean,
1000% yes. Oh.
we, we help people get in shape and eat
Mhm.
better, and but really what people want is someone to connect with, right? So I've had this comprehensive program, and it's been around for a while. It's a health and wellness program it's a higher cost program, but it's also a program where I can work more on and kind of what you're talking about, like the headspace stuff. And what I've infused into it is more the Ayurveda practices. So I'm not an Ayurvedic practitioner. I'm not a medical doctor. And so if you're unfamiliar with Ayurveda, it's a holistic model, and I've always been a holistic health coach and a holistic personal trainer, which basically means I would much rather say, like, okay, client A, you got diagnosed with high blood pressure. Okay, so let's follow your physician's guideline. Let's take your high blood pressure meds, but let's naturally, holistically, let's cut back on your sodium intake. Let's add 20 minutes of cardio a day to your current routine. Or if you don't have a routine, let's get you started with movement. So the Ayurveda model, it brings in all the practices of traditional medicine in India, and it brings them in using more like some herbs, Chinese medicine, which I've referred out to a couple of local traditional Chinese medicine practitioners in the area because I don't practice Chinese medicine. We did, oh my gosh, we paid off our student loan debt in 2020. Oh my gosh, I'm
Wow.
sorry,
That
squirrel,
is very
squirrel for a
exciting.
minute,
Wow.
squirrel.
Yes.
But what I was gonna say is, if I wanted to go back to school and get like a master's, because you can get a degree in Ayurvedic medicine, okay, and you can go get a degree in TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. Well, all these certifications and all this stuff behind me, Krystal, we finally in 2020, which even though it was a crazy year, after 16 years, we paid off
Yay.
our student loan
So
debt.
wonderful. So
Oh my
wonderful.
gosh. Oh my gosh.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Which it brings me back to Ayurveda because I love learning this content, but truth be told, I can't imagine going back to school again and getting more student loan debt. So I've just been reading a lot, infusing these practices into what I do, things I can offer, like I use my exercise phys degree for more of the programming, my dietetics, degree for more of the nutrition. But then I've been referring people out. I don't know a lot about essential oils, but I know somebody I can refer my clients to. And I am not an acupuncturist, but I know someone I can refer people to. So I've been developing this comprehensive program where I use a lot of, meditation, breathing, different practices that I'm qualified in to work with my clients, but then also pulling out other practitioners that are in the area that are probably, Ayurveda would be considered alternative medicine. I don't think you could go to an Ayurvedic practitioner and then like submit that to your insurance. I don't know if insurance would reimburse you. But they do things like, herbal remedies, whereas, as a holistic person, I might say, let's try a little ginger, or let's throw a little turmeric in, things that we can lower the inflammation in your body. But if you went to a traditional doctor and say you had some sort of inflammatory disorder, they might put you on a medicine. Whereas an Ayurvedic practitioner, they're going to do more herbal remedies and talk to you about diet, stress management, things like that.
Right, right. Well, that makes
Yeah.
complete sense. And that's very much how I practice, probably without even really knowing it.
Right.
In my health
Right.
coaching business, I
Exactly.
didn't know that
Yeah.
there was a term for it. But I just
Yeah.
had this conversation with one of my clients the other day. She goes to, a doctor who's a direct primary care physician.
Okay.
And, I work alongside Dr. Patrick Hobbins, who I've had
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the podcast. And we were sort of talking about like that transition of
Yeah.
sort of this cultural shift of the way people want to consume their medical uh,
Right.
practice, or they want to consume their medical help or whatever, and where they look
Yeah.
for physicians.
Yeah.
And I think people are getting very frustrated, and I think
Yeah.
COVID sort of shone a
Yeah.
light even more so on that, because I know for me, I just would get so frustrated, calling the doctor, and they're a part of this network. And then I'm getting
Yeah.
on the phone, I'm talking to a machine, or I'm going to
Oh,
somebody
yeah.
who's in a corporate office, and they're bouncing me back to get an appointment. And it's like, by the time I get there, the nurse
Yeah.
practitioner who I see, she really wouldn't know why I was there. I have to explain all this
Oh,
all over again. And then you feel like you're there for 10 minutes, and they just go, okay, well, what's the easiest thing to treat here? This is probably this, right? And it's just so impersonal. And I think people are
yeah.
getting really frustrated. And I mean, not even to bring in the whole conversation about, like you said, health insurance, right? Which is, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
another beast to tackle all in itself. But
Oh,
I think
yeah.
people are just
Yeah.
becoming more aware that, like, yeah, I need to be my own advocate
Yes.
for my health and wellness. And, what does
Yes.
that mean? Where can I go to find
Yes.
the answer? So
Yes.
I love that you have said, well, I might not be an expert in this or that, but here's a
Yes.
person who is, and here's a person who does this. And
Right.
um, at the start of 2020, I had the vision to do the same, right? To say, um,
Yeah.
that collaborative effort. And I think we even had talked about that several
Yeah.
times throughout the
Yeah.
year, right? Like, okay, where am I lacking, or where can I maybe call in somebody who's an expert with that? And so that's sort of where
Yeah.
that whole personal chef thing came in, right? But
Yeah.
um, so I love that. So how is that, I guess, maybe freed up your headspace, or like enables you to like take a breath, or helped your emotional, state of being, knowing that you have these collaborations?
Well, the biggest thing, I mean, just like you, like we were talking about your physical therapist last year, you were having some ankle, you were doing rehab for your ankle. And I
Hmm.
mean, and those are the kinds of things like, okay, you and I are not physical therapists, nor do I have any interest in going back to school for physical therapy. But the thing of it is that you have to be a part of a team. So what I've been talking a lot about is what you just said, a collaborative approach at helping people with what they need. And I completely respect the medical model. I mean, if something happened to my son, if he had some sort of injury, oh, you better believe I'd be going to the ER and I'd be taking care of it, and I trust the doctors. But a lot of times when it comes to chronic conditions, if someone has been saying like, I've been having this particular pain in this particular area, and you and I we've both done our own research, and you're like, okay, the orthopedic surgeon hasn't helped, and maybe the chiropractor has helped, but it only lasts for so long, or how about strength training? How about you see an acupuncturist? I mean, the thing is that you and I we're not a one-stop shop, and there's all these other people that we can work with to help people. And right now, even still, this is a year out from the quarantine from last year, a lot of my clients are still not getting, and I'm really big on this. So please, anybody who's listening, like, please, please, please get back on the wagon with your preventative appointments. I've had people, I mean, I ask my clients all the time, have you had your colonoscopy? Have you done your mammogram? Things like this. But people still are not comfortable going to the doctor.
Mm.
I've had clients that still haven't gone back to the dentist, and it's been a year. And I'm like, okay, well, because they're afraid. Even clients that have gotten the vaccine, there's still like a fear and an anxiety, and I understand that. But if you haven't had a mammogram in 2 years, or you haven't had an annual physical in 3 years, I mean, I'm really, really encouraging my clients to get back into the habit of doing their preventative, health appointments.
Yes, yes, I completely agree with you. And I've seen that same thing,
Yeah,
happening. And I, I've read, just a little bit of the statistics, and it seems like, I don't know. I mean, certain illnesses are not presenting as much statistically,
right,
but I think
right,
that has to do with people not going to their
right,
doctors, right? Not getting diagnosed with these issues.
right,
Maybe,
right,
oh,
exactly.
diabetes is slightly down. Well, no, the people who were going to be diagnosed with diabetes in
Right.
2020 just didn't go to the doctor.
Yeah.
But there's, I think that a two-part component to it, right? That um, I hope people are waking up to the sense that, okay, I do need to go see my primary care physician, but I also need to take my own leadership and
Right.
responsibility with my health.
Right.
And I think
Right.
that's why you and I are tending to be a little bit busier, because people are
Yeah.
going, yeah, I know I'm overweight. I know I have high
Right.
blood sugar. I know my diet is not very good. And they're just like, well, I'm going to go expose myself to my primary care physician. They're going to tell me I need to lose 20 pounds. They're going to tell me I need to
Right.
get my cholesterol under control. They're going to, tell me all these things.
Right.
And they're like, I already know, let's just start here, instead of
Right.
sort of
Right.
going through the
Right.
motions of all that over and over
Right.
again. So I hope,
Right.
people are becoming a little bit more aware of
And
that.
a benefit, I think, like you and I, if you do, I mean, I do my session durations are like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or an hour, so say the average client works with me for 45 minutes. In defense of the medical system, have I gone to any of my specialists? Have I gone to the OB and spent 45 minutes with her? Have I gone to my primary care and spent 30? It's not so much that the physician doesn't want to spend the time. It's just the way the model is organized. If someone says to me, we're going to spend 45 minutes, and I have a recent client who just got diagnosed with pre-diabetes, the first question I'm asking in the session is, do you even understand your diagnosis?
Mm.
Because the doctor, and I understand and I respect their time, but say they only had 10 or 11 minutes with their patient. Well, now with me, for they might have 45 minutes. So we have the luxury of time, to talk about, well, do you understand what insulin is? Do you understand what blood sugar is? Do you understand the impact, carbohydrates might be playing on the way your body is responding with these different blood values? So I think a lot of it starts with simple education. I mean, I can't tell you how many med clients I've had the conversation with, that have high blood pressure. I ask them, like, do you understand the impact that consuming a high sodium diet has on your blood vessels, and how it irritates the blood vessels, and that increases the pressure that you have, and that increases your blood pressure. And 9 times out of 10, and it's again, this is not any sort of an attack on the medical model or physicians. I know you guys are doing the best you can, with the time that you have. But having a simple understanding, like, hey, even if they log their food for one day, like, hey, I noticed, you're consuming like 6,000 milligrams of sodium a day. Like, when you have that popcorn, and that's not outrageous for some of the food logs I've seen with my clients. How about on that popcorn, how about instead of you putting, a teaspoon or 2 teaspoons, how about we cut that in half? And how about we have half a teaspoon or a quarter of a teaspoon, and then when you wake up the next day, hopefully, your rings fit, or, you're not as bloated, you're not getting all the swelling in the joints. But some of these, what I would call holistic treatments, like reducing your sodium, going to bed 15 minutes earlier, turning your screen off an hour before you go to bed. These are not things that really cost money, and it's not a pill, but it's a practice that person can implement into their life. And it's a health habit that might make even more of an impact to either reduce the amount of medication they need, or they either reduce their chronic disease. I've even had clients that didn't need their blood pressure medicine after losing a certain amount of weight and then changing their diet.
Yeah.
Like, how
And
wonderful is that?
that is so rewarding, not only for
Yeah,
them, but I feel like for us,
yeah,
right, as those people in
yeah,
that position, to help them,
yeah,
because I mean,
yeah,
nothing against like Western medicine, and some people
yeah.
legit need a medication to help them, but
Right,
um, I've seen just a trend where people rely too much on
right,
medication,
right,
because making those
right.
lifestyle changes is hard.
I know,
It's
and I
hard for a
know,
lot of
I know,
people,
I
and
know.
but
Yeah,
ultimately,
yeah.
I'm reading this great book about actually like health in the Bible, and like how
What is it?
like or like just how God designed the world to sort of like give us what we need, and like how it's
Okay.
sort of like a personal responsibility to take care of your health and all these things. And it's just
Yeah,
bringing up a lot of interesting concepts for me, that we shouldn't rely on some outside source always to fix our problems, right? But that we can
yeah,
sort of come
yeah,
inward and say, okay, well, what can I do? How can I
yeah,
sort of take leadership of the
yeah.
situation, and
What's
make
the
those
book?
changes.
What is
I'll have to look at, I think it's called like Health in the Bible or something, like
like
literally,
really?
it's
Oh,
just really
okay.
simple
Wow,
like that.
okay.
But yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
sort of,
That's
and
awesome,
I
Krystal.
picked it up like at church conference, just like for free. It
Okay.
was just like, here, take
That's
one of these
awesome.
books for free. And I
That's
was like,
awesome.
hey, seems really
Yeah.
interesting. But I mean,
Yeah.
and not just the Christian religion, but I think just across
Yeah.
the board, a lot of,
Yeah.
religions or spiritual practices
Yeah.
sort of talk about that, right? That, your physical health is so much connected to your spiritual health,
Right.
and,
Right.
sort of taking care of all of the things. And when I think of holistic practices, that's sort of what I think of, right? That, I like to help people do the all encompassing approach where,
Right. Right.
and I'm sure you do too, right? Where they're
Yeah.
not just saying, okay, well, I just want nice arms and a six
Right.
pack abs, right? Because
Don't
I
you love
mean,
that? Because only one part of your body is gonna change.
yeah,
I'm like, oh, you're gonna be so happy with everything else.
right, exactly. So yeah, even thinking about that, like in a
Yeah.
holistic way, right? Well,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately, like we can't just spot reduce fat. Like we got to work on
Right.
all the things for you to get a tighter stomach. Just so
Right.
many people
Exactly.
like, I just need to
Yeah.
work on my stomach. I'm like,
Right. Right.
okay,
And that segues you into diet. You're like, all right, let's talk about what you're putting in your body. Well, I love that you're talking about the mind so much too, because I'm telling you, if there's anything else I've gained from this whole 2020 COVID quarantine whole debacle is, you know what? As soon as you decide something in your mind, like you have to find the steps and the path to get there, right? So like we were talking a little bit about chronic disease. Like say all of a sudden your doctor says, well, you know what? It sounds like, based on all these symptoms you're telling me, it sounds like you have anxiety. Well, then, like, there becomes this internal message in the mind that's like, oh my gosh, I have anxiety. This explains so much. And then, depending on how the person responds to that, they may or may not feel like they have this locus of control, like, well, what can I do about it? And do I need to be on anxiety meds for the next 80 years, or is there something I can do everyday living? Maybe pair it initially with the medication. But what are some other things I can do so that I'm not super reliant, just on the medicine?
right, right. I think about when I broke my ankle
Oh,
almost,
yeah.
a year and a half ago, right? And they
Yeah.
gave me a boot, and they were like, okay, well, you can walk with this boot, and I did. And I can't even believe the things I did in that boot. Good Lord.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, here's this boot, and you're gonna wear this forever,
Yeah.
right?
No.
It was
Mm-mm. Yeah.
never like that thought never even
Mm-mm.
crossed my mind. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I need this boot right
Yeah.
now because this is what my body needs. This is what I need to heal. But what are
Yeah.
the other things I need to do? I needed to see Audric over at Effort
Yeah.
Performance,
Yeah.
PT, and I needed to
Yeah.
rest it. I needed to give myself the proper nutrition and lots of
Yeah.
protein, BCAAs to recover, and have time for
Yeah.
those ligaments to recover. And I thought of that in that time. I was like, that this is a lot like taking a prescription medication, right?
Yeah.
Where maybe for 6 months, 8 months, or whatever, 6 weeks, whatever the time period is that people are on medication. But the goal should always be, okay, so what else can I do? What's the all
Yeah.
encompassing way to sort of get past this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I know I need this now, but this is not forever. This is not the
Right. Yeah.
ultimate end all solution.
Yeah. And to go beyond. Go beyond. What's the next step? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how's your ankle doing now?
The ankle is much better. I mean,
Oh,
I have
awesome.
learned to slow down. I think I learned a lot in that process. And I've taken a lot of impact out of my own workouts.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
I
Good
started
for you.
swimming, which I know you're a swimmer, and I've never been a
Yes.
swimmer, so
I'm
I'm
not
really
a
excited
swimmer.
for
I'm not a
that.
swimmer. Okay. Not a swimmer. Not a swimmer. I do swimming because it's so good for the joint.
Yes. Okay.
If
So
you
we're like
ever
on the
see
same
me in
page
the
here.
pool, if you ever happen to be in the next lane, I do my best in the water, but I am like very much so originally a runner who ended up in the pool because of injury.
Yes. Okay. This is so funny. So we're exactly like I know how to
Yeah,
get from one end of the pool to the other without drowning,
right.
and and I come up for air sometimes.
Yes,
But
yes,
by
yes.
no means am I like a swimmer. I was never
Oh,
on a
no,
swim
no.
team. I mean, I never even really took a swim lesson. So I just, but yeah, you do what you got to do, right? And
Yeah.
so,
Oh my gosh,
and I'm
yes. Yeah.
preaching that so much with my own clients that, you know, work with your limitations, and it's okay
Yeah.
not to jump around all the time. And here I was sort of beating up my body for years and years. And, oddly enough, it's like everything is so interconnected, right? And
Oh
I
yes.
love talking
Oh, yeah.
to, my physical therapist, Audric, about this, because he just understands this so well that, one injury, sometimes even when you're a kid, leads to
Yeah.
another thing, leads to another thing,
Yeah.
leads to another thing. And that breaking my ankle wasn't the start of something. It
Oh,
was the
oh,
result of
yeah.
all of these other things that, I had maybe recovered from, but never truly addressed, so,
Yeah.
so now because the ankle was on the left foot, now I've developed a tailor's bunion on my right foot.
Oh
And so,
no.
I'm sort of dealing with that
Oh
now. And it's
no.
always like this flip flop thing of like
Right.
between the feet. And
Right.
that's my lot in life. And that's okay. And, learning
Yeah.
to deal with those limitations again. And,
Yeah.
it's, again, we were
Wow.
talking about sort of like that
Man, I'm
feeling
sorry.
overwhelmed and having a lot going on. And
Oh
this week,
yeah.
my foot was finally like, okay, we're doing a little bit too much again, so.
Yeah. Yeah, the body sends you those pain signals. I mean, I tell people all the time, you have this like vagus nerve, right? And there's like a direct connection, to the cranium, and I mean, not just, I know, science aside, literally like how you feel, what you eat, there is like an immediate response. So if you are having pain anywhere, there's somewhere in your body that's like, wait a second, I'm feeling pain. What can I do to not feel pain? Or what can I do to feel good? So a lot of times, I mean, I can't tell you how many of my clients, they even high level athletes that have been in college or amateur, and they get injured and they end up in that injury rehab time gaining weight. And a lot of it is like depression, overeating. It's like, how can I feel good? Because they used to have this habit of doing their sport or just working out because you had all these awesome chemicals telling your brain I'm happy, working out, dancing, whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
But it's like this huge, like you said, balancing act, and then sometimes with rest and again, I'm not a mental health professional, but I mean there's times where people, I call it the accumulative effect, so it's like, okay, well, you have that full-time job and then you have three kids. And then you also have a house to take care of and you've been helping your parents. And then now you're stacking all of these responsibilities. And then you're beating yourself up about not working out 3 days a week. And there's this accumulative effect of stress. So sometimes your body goes into an injury or something where it's just saying, we're going to pull back and we're going to do maybe no workouts for a week or 2 weeks or a month. And you're going to reinvest your energy into relaxation or meditation or reading or cooking or spending time with your kids or spending time with your parents or, just having sometimes and I know we're personal trainers, but sometimes more exercise is just not the answer.
Right, exactly. And when I run my 21-day programs, and, we encourage people to exercise, right? At least, 5 times a week.
Right.
But I also remind people that there are those days where, yeah, if you're feeling injured, if you're feeling like,
Yeah.
I guess just being more in tune with your body, right? Listening and saying, like,
Yeah.
if you feel that exercise is going to put you back, or
Right.
possibly uh not be good for you that day, or whatever it is,
Right.
I mean, not just because
Right.
you don't feel like working out, but like legitimately listening to your body and saying, like, do I have an injury? Am I too sore? Is
Right.
this gonna,
Right.
did I not
Right.
sleep enough? That sort of thing. Like, I'm like, take that 30 minutes and do something else, but do something for you still.
Right.
Like,
Right.
do something creative, listen to a podcast, read a book, or, something like that. Because,
Yeah.
I just think any time we take to focus on ourselves is really important. So,
It's huge. It's huge. And a lot of people with the whole quarantine, they've revisited the whole concept of leisure. Like there are people that were unemployed. I mean, I've had family people in my own family, my siblings. And I mean, they weren't like leisurely enjoying their unemployment, but there was this concept with some people, there was a pullback. I had several friends and clients, they were commuting downtown from Northwest Indiana, or even from the suburbs in Illinois. And now all of a sudden they are working remotely and they're like, I have 2 more hours in my day. What do I do? Do I get more sleep? Do I sleep in till I have to log in on my computer? Do I go for a walk? Do I walk my dog? I mean, there are, literally, I don't know about, your clientele, but I've had people that were like waking up at 4:30, 5 a.m. so they could, get the kids ready, the dog, get all that situated, drive to the train station, get on the train, go down. And literally their day, I would just listen to their day. And then I would be like, oh my gosh. And then 15 hours later, you're home and you're supposed to make a homemade meal.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so the concept of like even having leisure time, like I think a lot of people, especially with the restaurants being closed, a lot of people, a highlight that has come out of COVID for a lot of the people I know is they've started cooking again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's awesome. Or if they don't have time or they that's not a part of their what they enjoy, they've like hired a chef or revisited some other meals that they used to enjoy because their time, the whole COVID thing has really switched how people spend their time.
Yeah. And I think too, I've known a couple of people that not only their quality of life improved because they were working from home, but there were some
Yeah.
of my friends that
Yeah.
were like temporarily unemployed from the job that they were at. And they were like,
Yeah.
that job is not for me. I am
Yeah.
so much happier. My life is so much better. I feel so much healthier,
Yes. Oh, I've noticed
and
that.
they were
Yes.
like,
Yes.
did not go back to that job, when they
Yeah.
could. They were like, I put in my 2 weeks, I found another job. I just took some time off. I started a business, whatever. Because it was like, hey, people realize like, what have I been doing? I think when people are
Yeah.
stuck on that hamster wheel of like, going around and around and
Right.
around every day. I mean, you
Right.
don't even have time to really check in and be like, am I gratified by what I'm doing? Where am I going? What am I
Right.
doing?
Right.
And
Right.
that's one thing I always really stress with my clients and on this podcast. And
Yeah.
reasons
Yeah.
why I created this podcast, right? The Playful Life is because like we have one life, we have one experience in this physical body, in this time with these people. Like,
Mm.
what are you doing? Like,
Right.
don't wait until it's too late. Don't
Right.
wait until you can't move or, can't
Right.
feed yourself
Right.
or God forbid, what are you
Right.
doing on this planet if
Right.
you are not,
Right. Right.
enjoying life, right? So it's,
Right.
yeah, I think in some ways a blessing that time was for some people,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
really
And checking
wake
back
up.
in. Yeah, like checking back in. Like a habit I developed and I had some friends help me and then I took a class and honestly, I'm telling you meditation, I know that I am very type A and I'm very hyperactive. I am. I even see it in my 3-year-old, and I just think when I go to pick him up, from daycare and I just think like this is payback. Like literally what I am experiencing right now, he is running laps and I'm like, yeah, who else do I know that basically that was my life every day? I got home from school and I had to run my laps. So literally I'm like, okay, this is just me experiencing what my parents experienced with me, and just spending more time with him and being aware of what's happening. The whole concept of meditation and putting that into my life and just even having 20 minutes to just sit down and be quiet and not have a device or music or driving somewhere or just noise in general, it really has helped me to refocus on the things that are really important. And I don't know. I'm turning 40 this year. I don't know. Maybe it's, I asked my sisters, like, is this a midlife crisis? My older sister, I'm one of 6, and I'm like, is what I'm going through, is this like called a midlife crisis? Because I'm like, that practice, I don't really like that. And this one I really do like. And, I've had a lot of people ask me again if I offer massage therapy, and I haven't done massage for almost 2 years now. And although I really enjoyed it, it was physically like so taxing for me, between getting up at night with my son, at the time when I was doing massage therapy. And, just like you said, this whole time period, just taking a step back and really evaluating and contemplating, is this the right path? Is what I'm doing now, at 39 years old, is this going to give me the results I want in a year or 5 years or 10 years? And am I doing anything to build, those stepping stones to get to the end result? Where is this yellow brick road leading me to?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And oh, you just muted yourself.
What's
um
that?
there we go. And something happened. You just muted yourself for a second.
Oh, sorry. Is this, I don't know, you've worked with is this called like a midlife crisis? I don't know.
Elaine, I hope that people go through a transitional period like this every year, every 2 years, every 3 years. I feel that I had a moment when I was turning 30. So I don't know if it's every
Okay.
decade we
Okay.
have one of these, but when I was in my early 30s, I
Yeah.
really was like, okay, I was so unhappy, I don't know. I don't know what forces us to that point. Do we have to get so uncomfortable with the uncomfortable that we decide we even want to change? I think that's part of it. And when I work with clients, I tell them the same thing. I say, yeah, I know these workouts are uncomfortable. I know it's going to be uncomfortable to choose
Yeah.
healthy sometimes or to go to bed earlier,
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
no to
People,
certain things,
it is
right?
not easy to always make the healthy decisions,
Yeah,
especially when it comes to food.
exactly,
Yeah.
right? Like
Not
sometimes we
always
just
easy.
want to comfort ourselves with food or whatever. So, I don't know. I feel like I am in a place again because when COVID happened and everything stopped for me, I did look at things and then I feel like I slipped into this pattern now when everything opened back up that I was like, I have to do everything,
Oh,
again. And I was like, um, I don't know if it was like a fear that like everything's going to close down again. I'm not going to have
I
an
hope
income.
not. Oh
So
gosh, I
like
hope
I have to, but I don't know if that was like part of my thought process. Like, oh, I better do this. I better do this. I better say yes to this and yes to this and yes to
not.
that. And, because I
Right.
don't know if it's all going to go away one day, but I have somehow dug myself into the same hole that I
Oh
was
no.
so happy to get out of when quarantine first happened, right? When I
Yeah.
feel like when everything shut down, there was some anxiety there, but like you said, I sort of really embraced that. Okay, I'm just going to sit at home, just be with myself, understand
Yeah.
where I'm going. And I was doing well for a while. And I love that I could be so open and honest with my audience here and admit that I go through the same
Yeah.
struggles that everybody else does because
Oh, we all do. Yeah.
um, I'm really at
Yeah.
this crossroads where I have to figure out, okay, what is working and not even in a
Right.
financial way, but just what
Right.
do I
Right.
want? What do I want? What am I saying
Right.
yes to that's not really a yes for me, right? In here.
Right. Right. Well, redefining those boundaries, I think people are doing that all the time. I mean, and I know I keep going back talking about my son, but I mean, he's going to be 4 this year, and there are days where the morning routine it goes so well. It's just like, gets up, we're potty training. He's doing awesome in potty training. Uses the potty, washes his hands. We get to sit down, and we're going to eat breakfast, and then it's like all of a sudden I don't even know my child anymore. Like and then there's other days where he's fighting with me about brushing his teeth or it's just like I must say with motherhood I am definitely more comfortable in my role as a mom. But I feel like my son, he definitely like feeds my need for challenge and my need for change and growth, because I'm telling you, like Krystal, literally, like my kid, he's like, Mom's getting it too easy this morning. I am not going to cooperate with getting in the car, or I'm not going to let her put my shoes on, or what I mean? So then each day I'm literally like, I drop him off at daycare, and then I get back and I think about like, okay, what went wrong? Like, what could I have done differently? And then with, the boundaries of like, did I give him too much time to play in the sink with the water? Or, I don't know, like, did he really not have to go to the potty? And, it's just like different things where I'm thinking, I'm constantly like going through this mental process where I'm vetting, what went well, what didn't go well. And I don't know, maybe this is like every mom that has a toddler, because I swear it's like a three-nager situation where he's ecstatically happy 1 minute, And then the next minute he's bawling, over, I don't know, his sticker ripped. Like he's like, pulling stickers out. We have these little, he likes putting those stickers on the paper and stuff. And I'm like, it's gonna be okay. It's like he was so thrilled about everything else. And then, Mickey Mouse's ears came off, and I'm like, oh no, here we go. Let's get into happy dance and get up and move. Because all of a sudden, what was a really excellent morning, it could go south really quick with a 3-year-old. But in your situation, I'm sorry, I know I'm totally going off.
No,
I
this is such
just
a good lesson.
keep talking about my kid. But you're going back and revisiting your loves and things that are going to change. Like, well, maybe like I love reading. You know what, honestly, I kind of forgot how much I like to read. And then I had some time with the quarantine and the gym in Illinois closing. And oh, by the way, I'm not currently taking clients there in Mokina in
Oh,
Illinois. I'm solely working here in Cherville. Because like I
awesome.
said, like 80% of my business is remote. So I'm
Good for
here, and
you.
then the other 20% is here, so I am just solely in Indiana now, which is, I don't know, neither good nor bad. I love the gym in Illinois. But some of the things, like I loved reading, and I read for clients. You know what I mean? Like if client says, hey, check out this book, I want, and I'll read it for them, or I'm like reading a book about, what's the next step in, potty training, or what's the next step, or like I'll read a recipe. But like the concept of me getting a book that like I just want to read just for me, it seems like so luxurious. Like why can't I let myself have 20 minutes, to sit down to read a book? Like I'm feeling guilty doing that. And I'm like, why is that my life? I don't have to wait till I'm retired to sit down and get to read a book I enjoy, right?
Hmm. Wow, you've hit so many things in like the last
Sorry,
3 minutes.
sorry,
But I
sorry.
think I'll try to tie it all together. But I agree that there's that sense of feeling a little bit guilty when we do something good for ourselves. And
Guilty. Yeah.
I work with my clients in that way, sort of like, what is this identity that you've created for yourself? And in what ways does having a healthier practice go against this identity that you've created, that you think other people
Right.
need from you, or that, this
Yes.
construct of whatever that you think you
Right.
have to uphold for all these other people in your life. And I've been really reading a lot about stoicism
Oh
recently.
yeah.
It's interesting, sort of like the whole concept is, I think, very skewed from like now in modern times. When we think of people being stoic, we tend to have, or society tends to have, a very negative connotation of what that means,
Yeah.
right? Somebody
I
who
would
is
agree. Yeah, yeah.
very just detached from everything, doesn't care, somebody's very selfish. But I mean, really truly, like the Stoics had a lot of just amazing wisdom. And in studying sort of like serenity and letting go and letting God and things like that, like it really is,
Yeah.
that is what stoicism is, sort of that, like, what can I control, what can't I control? And I think maybe
Mm-hmm.
when you talk about your child, like he doesn't really have a sense
Right.
yet, right,
Right.
of what's
Right.
in control and what isn't. And
Right.
he's very attached to those emotions about those things, right? And we see it with children, like you said, right? You can go from having a great day,
Yes.
sticker rips, it's
Yeah.
all shots of where. And
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
how often do we as adults do the same thing, right? We can be
Right.
having a great day, somebody cuts us off in traffic, boom,
Yeah.
chain of
Yeah.
events totally turns around. Now we're in a
Yeah.
bad mood. Now the next interaction we have is this. And it's sort of like this snowball, right? And,
Right.
when I got into sort of learning about like the law of attraction, manifestation, all these things, right? It's,
Yeah.
all about like creating a positive mindset. So important. But I think even more so, it's detaching from those emotions that sort of come up in that situation.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to carry that person cutting me off in traffic
Oh
all day
no.
with me, right? I don't have to
Let
carry
him go.
somebody messed up my order at the coffee shop, whatever. Okay, you know what? Let it go. That was not in my control, right? So
Right.
sort of
Right. Yeah.
understanding those things has been really helpful for me. And I think sometimes it's easier for me to deal with the things that aren't in my control because I say like,
Right.
okay, well, I don't know, I have no control over that, right?
Yeah.
But I think what's really happening now that I'm doing this is there's a big light that's getting shown back at
Mm.
me and saying, okay, Krystal, here are all the things that are in your control. And now you need to do something about these things. And I think that's when it gets very difficult for me.
So me as the coach in me, like, so badly wants to ask you questions. Like, are we allowed to do that? I don't know. I know you're interviewing me, but can I,
Of
like, what's going
course.
on? What's
Of
going
course you
on,
can.
Krystal? The coach in me is like, what is it? What is the mirror saying?
Yeah, well, I feel that I mean, maybe this is a blessing and maybe it's a curse, but I think just being one of those people that just loves to do so many things, right? I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah.
love to perform. I love fitness. I love, helping people, volunteering, being active in my church, right? I really truly love all these things, but I think what I have to really figure out is what is it about these things that I really do enjoy? What specifically is it? Is it really
Yeah.
all these things? Do really all of these things bring me joy or fulfill me? And what is it about these things
Yeah.
specifically that fulfills me?
Yeah.
Because if I can get rid of all things and keep one thing, what would it even be and why? And how would that fulfill
Hmm.
me? So I think once I figure that out,
Yeah.
and I've asked my higher power to help me figure that
Yeah.
out, but I
Yeah.
think once I do and I say yes and I commit to that one thing, it's all
Yeah.
just all the trees are gonna
Yeah.
go,
Yeah.
does that make sense?
Well, I think what I'm hearing you say is that you feel spread thin.
Mm,
You're in a lot of areas, and this is a lot of people, and it's and really does not have a relation to the time period, but you are such a generous giving person. You have the podcast, you have your business. I know you like to perform, all the things you're saying, all the different areas that are highlights in your life. That if one of the puzzle pieces probably wasn't active at all in a 0% of your time, who would you be?
mm, mhm,
Like you said, like I had a client, that comment you had said about upholding other people's constructs. So
mm,
I had a conversation with one of my coaching clients a few weeks ago about how it was like every Thursday. I think it happened to be like every Thursday, him and his buddies would go out, for beers after work. That would be his thing. And he was talking about wanting to cut back on, calories and alcohol intake. And he's like, and I asked the question, so how many beers would you normally have? Like, typical question, right? And then, it took him a while because he was like, I have no idea. How do I know when you go out? You don't count how many, and I was like, well, next time you go out, shoot me a text. And, if you get your receipt or your tab or whatever, let me know. And he's like, it's probably like 9 or 10. And I was like, so how would your social situation be different if you had, I don't know, 8 or 7 or less? Like, you just cut back a couple hundred calories. Like, if you for one week took out the volunteering piece, or for one, I don't know, I mean, I don't know how your priorities rank, but just like in coaching that we do for our clients is, a lot of times it's kind of like with the diet. Like, how do you know what's triggering the reaction unless you eliminate it? Like, for a lot of people, I'm like, okay, where do you want to start? What's the easiest thing to pull out? Pop. Okay, let's pull out pop for a couple weeks. Did it change your headaches? Did it change the scale? Did it make you feel less bloated? What's the deal? A lot of people with skin, we're talking about dairy, the connect, well, let's take dairy out for, however long you can handle that, a couple weeks, and see what the response is. But I think having that time to reflect, and you're still offering in home, like you're still traveling. Like, oh my gosh, I probably stopped that maybe 7 years ago, because I just found the time and you know what, I'm where I originally grew up, we would walk places. Like, I didn't grow up like here in Northwest Indiana. Like, we could get out and go walk to school. We could walk to the grocery store. You could walk to the convenience store. You could walk to the candy store. You know what I mean? So, like, we didn't always have to like be in a vehicle, or you could like take public transportation. You could hop on the bus, or you could take a train or whatever. So the concept of having all these, like the situation that we have right now with like having everything private, like, okay, so you have to be careful with what you're doing. And then it creates like a lot more time in your calendar, because like even me, like if I have an in-person client and I have to clean up after them, I have to consider, the handles, where, all the things, and how everything is just connected to one another. Well, now things are just so different, you know that you can't just go to church. Like you have to, okay, so do I have to make a reservation? Okay, like we wanted to go to the zoo. We went to the zoo the other week, and it was like, well, now we have to make a reservation. But it's like really weird. Okay, can I just say for a minute, the thing with the zoo is so weird, Krystal, because granted, we got a Zoom membership. I can thank my sister for that. So we got a Zoom membership, and you have to make a reservation. But usually, like if you don't make that reservation by like Monday or Tuesday, you will not get a time to get into the zoo. I'm talking Brookfield Zoo in Illinois. And if it rains, there's like no refund. Anyway, I understand the zoo. Like I love the zoo. I get it, because how else are you going to make sure there's a particular capacity unless you have a reservation? But just the whole way of doing things, I feel like the zoo is not like what it used to be. Like for me as a kid, it would be like, oh, I don't know, we're on spring break, or oh, it's a Sunday. Let's all, get in the wagon and, and go to the zoo. Now you have to plan ahead. You have to make a reservation. Am I wearing my mask? Did everybody bring their mask? Certain like indoor places are closed. And, I just feel like right now at this point in time, no wonder people's anxiety and depression is through the roof, because to go to church, like my sister was telling me with her church, she has to make a reservation, and then there's like a check-in process, so it's like it's just a lot of the everyday things are not easy.
Mm,
There's like a
yes.
procedure where it used to just, I feel like it used to just be easy. You just go, you don't think
Right.
about, all these things. But now you do need to think about all these things, so then your time, if going to church used to cost you, I don't know, let's say an hour and a half, well, now it might cost you 2 hours, because now you need to plan ahead, now you need to make a reservation. And then where are you sitting in church? And like I grew up in the Catholic church, where you'd like shake people's, peace be with you, like shake people's hands, and you do, communion and stuff. Like, do those things even happen right now?
It's mostly a wave. Hey, peace, peace, peace.
Yeah.
I mean, we still
Or
do that and wear masks, and yeah, but I mean, you're right. Sort of those things. And I mean, I'm very, very fortunate that when churches were allowed to open again, mine did, and I could go back. And
mm,
I mean, slowly, slowly, it's opening up more and more. People are more comfortable being there.
mm,
But like, I understand that, like, yeah, that's something that hopefully for a lot of people brings them joy and brings them
yeah,
comfort. And,
right.
it should hopefully be that place where sort of the worries and cares of the world melts away. And now it's not, right? Now,
Okay.
COVID, even though hopefully we're safe from it when we're in church, it still follows us into the church, right? It's sort of that looming, there's a virus out there, right? Like, because
Yeah,
everybody's wearing masks and we're all got
yeah,
hand sanitizer over. So it's even though we've gone back to some sort of normalcy, there's still this like this dark cloud that I feel like really follows
yeah,
us wherever we go.
yeah,
And like,
yeah,
these things aren't easy to do anymore,
yeah.
right? Going to pick up coffee isn't even easy anymore. And how
Right.
many
Oh, I
people?
was just talking to a client about that. And I asked, because she retired recently, and I asked, how's retired life? And she was like, all I wanted when I was working full time was to just meet up with my friends and go for coffee. So she retires, and then like, months later, it's COVID quarantine, and in a year's time, she hasn't been back to a coffee shop. And I just think about that kind of stuff now, like what's the future? Not that I want anyone to be anxious about it, but I think about, the business, in the business world, the future of what we have, and how many, even like in Chicago, how many restaurants have closed, how many restaurants have closed permanently. in the fitness
Right.
industry, with
Right.
what we do and how we do things. And some things are good. It's not all negative. I love that my clients are using resources like MyFitnessPal, YouTube. I love that they're, using Facebook and different ways to get, their workouts in. I love that people are being creative in that regard. But, and I mean, this is kind of the evolution of time, right? If a concept, like the concept of a buffet, I I really wondered, that China buffet that's on Indianapolis and Route 30
Yeah.
in Cherville.
Mhm.
I thought for sure they would never reopen. Krystal, they reopened
Oh my goodness.
a buffet.
I
So
don't
I
I
mean,
can't even imagine. I mean, I was not a buffet person before COVID, but I am certainly absolutely not a buffet person now, but, like, I'm sort of interested to see how one operates now. I mean, is there
me
just gonna
too.
be like a lunch lady line where somebody just is there and they just serve it to you? I don't know.
And there's like the screens, like if you're going anywhere, and there's like the plexiglass screen.
Yeah, right, yeah, all the plexiglass. Um, I should have
Yeah,
gotten in the business of selling plexiglass. I would have been a
yeah,
billionaire, but, yeah,
yeah,
and it's interesting too because I feel like the coffee house and even bars, right? Sort of like these communal gathering places that we had or
yeah,
at the gym where
yeah,
people can have
yeah,
conversations. And like when you go back to like the history of coffee, the history of tea in Europe,
right,
and like
right,
somehow these coffee houses like became financial institutions and stuff like that, really,
yeah.
because people would get together and they'd sit down and they would talk about ideas, they would share ideas. And I think
Yeah.
that's a reason why podcasts are so popular, because people just want
Oh
to
yeah.
sort of like sit in on someone's conversation.
Yes.
But I think that
Yes.
some of
Yes.
the cancel culture and some of the intolerance to people's differences that we're experiencing in our society right now
Right.
is in part due to, that lack of gathering, that
Mhm.
lack of, can we have
Oh yes.
face to face? And when somebody's sitting behind a screen and typing on a computer or on their phone, people are very ballsy with what they say and how they
Right.
interact with people.
Right.
Then if they were having just a conversation with
Right.
somebody, it's very difficult to pick up on nuances and tone of voice
Right.
and
Right.
sarcasm and things like that, is part of human interaction, right? That's what we're meant
Right.
to do. So
Right.
yeah, I
Well,
mean,
something and I know we probably need to wrap up here. We're looking at an hour. I don't know. I know you and I can talk forever. But the art of conversation. I mean, I was a school teacher, and granted, I know with kids it's different. And adults were more educated and how to pronounce things and enunciation. Communication skills in general. But as a school teacher, even when I taught high school, I mean, no joke. This is not even 10 years ago. I would sit there and I would watch the kids, and I don't know, say they were getting together for a school assembly. And if they were allowed to have their phones on them for the time, I mean, it would be nothing for literally an entire, section of 200 kids to just be, you know, and there's no communication, and as a teacher, I worked with high schoolers, I was a PE teacher. There's no flirtation. There's no, like, hey, look at, or I mean, and then I'm wondering, like, I don't know why I wonder these things, maybe because I just love and I love for people to like be happy. But I'm like, how many like missed opportunities to like ask someone to a dance, or like, are they even having dances? Like, are they having proms? Are they, and I just think now with the way, technology is great because obviously we can do things like this. And my business has developed in a different path, which I'm so grateful for the technology. But in a lot of regards, is when it comes to that human interaction, and especially in the younger kids now, a lot of times when you say to like, whatever, a junior or a senior in high school, hey, I heard you're going for that interview, for an internship or a job or a college interview, how do you say hello? How, do and do you shake hands now? How do you say, my name is, and why I'm interested in going to XYZ college or getting XYZ job, is a lot of children are, unless their parents are teaching them that, and teachers only, they're doing the best they can. But as soon as a lot of kids have free time, they're pulling back in, they're finding a device and they're locking in, and they're not necessarily, like you said, even being a fly on a wall to another
mhm.
person's conversation. Like, I taught driver's ed, And one of the things a lot of the parents said to me is, I would ask them, you got to do like so many like behind, and this was in Illinois. So I know Indiana's different, but I'm sure they have to do some hours. But they, we would ask the kids to do a certain amount of hours practice driving, before they would go, to the DMV, whatever, to get their driver's license test. And a lot of the parents would say, like, hey, the route we take to get to church or the grocery store. And the kids are like, no, I don't know. Because for years they have been on a device as a passenger in that vehicle. They have not been, a lot of the children are not like looking to see what the street is or where so and so's house is or what's the route or, just simple things that I feel like, I don't know, maybe as I'm entering my midlife crisis, I'm saying about how things were so different when we were young, but it's a different world that we live in now.
Crazy. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. That's like, I don't know if that makes me want to laugh or cry. That's so,
I don't know.
so
Not
bizarre.
that, you and I were like experts at, having a conversation or going on a date, but I think about that, how many like 20, I don't even know, like whatever age they're allowed to start dating and they go on their first date. Like, are they, like, I literally in my mind think like, are they just like, are the young man and young women just sitting there on their phone?
Well, you probably think about that because you have a kid, and
Right.
you're probably thinking, for your child, what's that going to be like? What's
Right.
that
I want him to be
transition going
friendly.
to be
Like,
like?
yeah, like
Mhm.
definitely be aware of strangers. But, if this is a person coming into my house and someone's walking into a room, I'll say, Victor, say hello. Say, greet the person who just entered the room. And, a lot of those every day that I think are common courtesies, are they still present now?
Yeah. Whew, girl, I feel like we've opened up a whole nother can of worms.
Sorry. Health and fitness. We were supposed to talk about health and fitness. It's all
But
related to
I
how
love
you
it. I
feel,
love
right?
when the conversation just takes on a life of its own. Well, I want to respect your time, my dear. So I'm excited. You've got ElaineBintz.com, which I will link below this episode, and very proud of the work that you've done with
Thank you.
that. It
Thank
looks
you. Thank you.
beautiful.
Thank
And
you.
Ayurveda, you're doing that with your clients now. I said it right. And um, so tell people, where can they find you and,
Sure.
connect with you and all of those good
Okay.
things.
Okay. So I'm on Facebook. So my Facebook is my business one is health coaching and with like an ampersand health coaching and personal training. I'm on Instagram. My name is backwards. It's Bintz Elaine on Instagram. It's my last name and then my first name. And then like Krystal said, thank you. Learning how to build a website, because I talked to you about it. Whew, that was a lesson and an experience. So you can visit my website. But I still, I love the consultation part of it. A question I've gotten recently from a lot of people is, can I just consult with you? And I'm like, yes, that is part of what we do. So if you want to do a 30-minute consultation, that could be your appointment. If all you need to do is to find out, is what I'm doing gonna work? Yeah, and everybody, like, in the meantime, keep your body moving and just make the best decisions that you can. As Krystal and I have pointed out, I really don't think things are ever going to go back to the way they were pre 2020. I think there's still going to be some systems that are going to be implemented that because of COVID, even though the vaccine is I know in Indiana it's more readily available, but you're still going to have to be your own advocate. And if please go get your preventative health appointments if you have not done that. Go back to your general physician. Yeah.
Awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know that you're
Thank you. Thank
busy,
you.
busy with clients and a busy mama and all those things. So
Thank
I
you.
always appreciate when I get to see you and, we get to either share a cup of coffee or lunch, or this is so awesome to share this conversation with all the people listening and watching. So, yeah, so we'll keep in touch, and God
Thank
bless
you.
you and everything that you're doing and all the people you're
Thank you.
helping. And
You too.
um,
You too.
we'll chat soon.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. If someone you love would benefit from this message, please, please share this podcast with them. And if you want more out of your life, not just surviving every day, but you want to truly thrive, visit me at crystallizedhealthadvisors.com or on Facebook to schedule your free dream strategy call with me today. Do not hesitate any longer. Life is short, and I want you to truly live the playful life. I will see you next time, and as always, stay playful.